everybody. Okay. We welcome you to this final webinar of the year. We've had quite a bit of webinars this year, and we're grateful that a lot of you have been what we can call regular attendees at on a lot of these webinars, and we don't take it for granted. We're indeed extremely grateful to all of you for being here. So if you give us just in 2 minutes, we'll just do a couple of things, send out a reminder, and then we will just go ahead with the webinar in itself. So once again, thank you for taking out of your very busy schedules to be here this afternoon. I can recognize a couple of people here that have attended some of these webinars in the past. And yeah, without you, we don't get anything out of this. So once again, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Hmm. Let's get on. I think we shared some of the reminders. So well, I'll ask a couple of questions. So please, everybody, please drop these things in your drop the answers in the chat room. So we'll send a couple. I will be saying a couple of things, and I would like to hear thoughts and opinion from everybody. And the best way for you to pass across these things will be via the chat room. And when I'm done with the webinar, I can easily come back to the chat room and I can address some of those things adequately. Okay. Okay. So yes, well done once again, everybody. Let's get on with this. So today we're talking about two management systems. Two management systems that a lot of people do not even know that they exist. So one of the things all of us should ask ourselves is one of the things we should all ask ourselves is does our organization have specific policies, specific procedures, and specific approaches, but by which we address or we have addressed anti-bribery and whistleblowing as organizations, because these are core issues of corporate governance. These are core issues of risk management. These are core board and executive issues. These are core internal control and internal audit issues. These are core legal and compliance issues. And I'm hoping that on this call, we will have representations from different organizations and from different departments and different units in different organizations. So once again, these are core conversations that you need to be very mindful of if you're thinking about corporate governance in your own organization, if you're thinking about risk management, if you're thinking about an adequate compliance environment. These are core issues. And the beauty of these things is that if we look at it from this perspective, we're not just talking about the conversation of anti-bribery or whistleblowing as should I say standalone conversations. We're looking at them within the context of a management system. So it's one thing for your organization to say, I'm addressing bribery, I'm addressing whistleblowing, addressing corruption or whatever that thing is. It's another thing for you to look at these same things within the context of a management system. So if this is your first time on this call, once again, we welcome you. We do two things as an organization is we do a lot of training. So when it comes to anti-bribery and whistleblowing, we provide training services, and we also perform what we call audits and review type services relative to many standards, and these two inclusive. So definitely it'll be good. It's great to have everybody in here. We usually will do this for just about an hour, so I'm going to blow through this very quickly because we're mindful that this is lunch time for a lot of people, and a lot of people are also extremely busy at this time of the year, so to speak. So we're going to make this very quick so that we don't take too much of your time. One of the things we also do is that we provide this same recording, we'll put it on YouTube. So it's people can always go back to them. And once you're registered for this program, we will share the slides with you. We will also, apart from just sharing the slides, we will also send you the link for the YouTube recording. And of course, it's always great to build relationships with people, and we'll always be extremely happy to speak with you at some point in time. So, of course, these are global issues. You know, sometimes people in Africa think that they have the worst corruption and the worst bribery type situations. But I tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. These are global issues everywhere around the world. People are dealing with these things. So this is not an African standard, or these are not African standards. These are not Nigerian standards. They are not Ghanaian standards. They're global standards for addressing bribery and corruption and whistleblowing across the world. So there's nothing that you and I are experiencing that is strange or that is out of the way. And of course, if you look at the images on my screen, you can see the first one on the to my own left is the man, somebody being offered money and saying no thank you, and then you can see something under the table, a lot of conversations under the table. You can see the other one, things are changing hands. People are shaking over various kinds of scrupulous type transactions. And the last one is offering money for some kind of admission, for some kind of acceptance into something, right? And sometimes when you're talking about anti-bribery and anti-corruption and whistleblowing, it almost sounds like some kind of religious type conversation, but it's not. None of the documents, none of these principles have been written from a I've been written from a none of these things here have been written from a religious perspective. So these are all corporate governance issues. So we're not trying to talk about righteousness or holiness or any of those things here. We're trying to talk about corporate governance, about risk management in itself. So and I think every adult has been in this kind of situation, whether you and I are the givers or you and I are the collectors of bribe for one thing or the other. I always say to people, I said, everybody is ethical until they are not. A lot of people are ethical until they are not. A lot of people are people say, oh, if I was me, I would never do that. But you have not been in that situation, so we don't know. We can't validate that you will not do that except you can demonstrate that you've been in that situation prior to now. So I mean, this is applicable to everybody. These are conversations at the board level of every organization, at the executive level of every organization. These are conversations, once again, tied to internal control, tied to internal audit, and many other departments and units in an organization. So we're going to look at them. I'm going to advise you. So please you can open the browser. Everybody, if you just open the browser either on your phone or you just open the browser somewhere, on your computer and just type ISO 37001, and it will bring you to this page. And you can see on the page it talks about transparency, and talks about trust as being building blocks for credibility in an organization, transparency of actions, transparency of transactions, transparency of many things. And then it further says that, the bribery undermines the values of most organizations. Bribery affects it affects the ethics that most organizations have imbibed. The code of corporate governance that most organizations are broken just because of bribery. So there's a global management system. This is not a local management system. This is not a Nigerian management system or a Ghanaian one. It's a global one. And it seeks to help organizations put some kind of smart, sensible structure around how they address bribery, around how they address corruption. And I'll also speak about whistleblowing in a minute. So once again, if you want to write this somewhere, you should write these are conversations around corporate governance. These are conversations around risk management. These are conversations around compliance. These are conversations around internal control. These are conversations around internal audits. These are key conversations around the legal and the regulatory environment for organization. I haven't seen the country globally that can put out a document, or an organization globally that can put out a document to say, oh, we have embraced bribery and corruption. Even the people who do it, who practice these things every day, will still not put out any, will still not gladly or confidently put it on their website and say, we are a bribery focused organization. I've never seen a company like that. Even drug dealers will not say we're into bribery and corruption. So it's important that you and I we address these things, and it's a journey. I think it's a journey. I think if anybody is very sincere around these things, I think it's something that you grew in, and it gets better once you've adhered. You made up your mind to adhere to it. Why I told everybody to go to the website is that there's some two useful documents on the website. So in fact, maybe three documents. So there's some three useful documents on the website in itself. So if you go directly to this website, you'll see towards the bottom of the site, you will see a practical guide to anti-bribery management system. And I think it's a beautiful read. I think it's an excellent read. So you will see that document. You also have something else that just talks about the anti-bribery management system, and there's also a PowerPoint deck on the site. So that's why I told everybody to please go to the website, because you'll find those documents useful in your quest for helping yourself or helping your organization to properly address this. So I was checking out the definition of both bribery and corruption, and I find it to be very interesting. Offering, giving, as I said, both you and I, both the givers and the people who accept. You and I only look at people who accept, but we're all people is the word. We're all part of it. So both the givers, the people who collect, the people who have the opportunity to interfere or intervene, and they take off their eyes. They said there's no justice when when the good people they ignore the wrong that is being done in the environment. So it's a journey. Our organizations and all of us as individuals, we just need to keep getting better with regards to ensuring that we can reduce or possibly eradicate these things, both from our organizations, from our own lives, and from our countries at large. So offering, giving, receiving, soliciting of any item of value. So it has to be something that is of value. So you can't say somebody bribed somebody else with a pencil that is probably worth 1 cent or $1 or 1 naira or one Ghana cedi, right? So it's got to be of value. So for example, if I give you my company calendar, table calendar, that cannot be seen ordinarily as because it's not of huge value, so to speak. And the other thing you also have to understand is to influence actions and decisions. That's the other thing, to influence actions and decisions. So if it doesn't meet some of these criteria, then it really cannot be considered as bribery. Of course, some of the other organizations have a broader view of this whole thing. Some organizations have a broader view of it. So that's why even people have a gift policy that don't come to my office and give me a very expensive Rolex and say that you've given it to me as part of a souvenir. How can you give me a souvenir that costs $20,000, $30,000, or something along those lines? So you have to be careful. Your organization has to really think about it and look at it and say, well, what does bribery mean to us? The other bit here is corruption. So once again, an organization has got to look at it and say to themselves, what does corruption mean to us? What is corruption? What does it mean? What does it mean to the ministry, to the agency, to the department of the government? What do these things mean, so to speak? So your own organization has to have your own definition of what this is. Just like some organizations have to have the definition of what is a project in my own organization. Some organizations have to have the definition of what is a risk in our own organization. So they can acknowledge the global definition, but they can also say to themselves that this is what this means to us and for us as an organization. I move on very quickly. Once again, I'm trying to be very mindful of time. This is not a training class. The training for these things, sometimes it can take 3 days, 4 days to go through the length and the breadth of the standard and to go through how to implement, how to adopt a lot of these things. So this is a 1 hour webinar, but as much as possible, we'll try to give as much information as possible, even during this quick 1 hour, so to speak. So this is a document I also find it very useful. You find it online, so you can just do a search online, and you also look at the table of contents. So it starts to speak about the commitment of leadership to prevent corruption in your processes. It speaks about ethics. It speaks about compliance. It speaks about risk assessment, and I've mentioned all those things. It speaks about having a proper program and having detailed policies. So you can see C5 on my screen. It talks about detailed policies and the application of anti-corruption. And then you can see C7 speaks about internal controls and record keeping and similar type things. It talks about violations. What happens if you and I have violated these things, and then periodic review. So these are the kinds of things that this whole thing means, and it's good and it's useful that you and I we look at it in detail and that we understand how each of our own organizations want to adopt this. So once again, this is the name of the standard. It's not new. You can see that this was published in 2016, so you will see here. So it's not exactly a new document, but it's a valid document, and it is still a current document from ISO. So definitely it's useful. And some of your organizations have one management system or the other. So some clients have come to us, speaking to us or asking us about this particular standard, so to speak. And then some people would ask that, oh, is it applicable to us? We're small organizations. Some people will say we're public organizations. Some people will say we're whatever kind of organization, but it is applicable to everybody. It doesn't matter the size of your organization. This standard is applicable, and it's also applicable across the world. And that's the good thing about that's the good thing. That's the good thing about ISO standards. They're applicable everywhere. I was having a conversation with a client yesterday, and they were talking about adopting the data protection standard in a country. They were talking about adopting the data protection and the privacy standard in their country, and I was advising them to look at ISO 27701. Like they look at that standard, the standard is applicable everywhere around the world, and because the standard is applicable everywhere around the world, if they adhere to that particular standard, then they won't have a problem anywhere around the world that they go to. That standard is extremely useful, and it's not tied to local laws. So someone cannot say, "Oh, we don't know what you have done relative to this." This is tied. It's global. It's across board. So it's not just tied to one country, and you can integrate with the other management systems that you have. You can even integrate with whatever, whether it's 9001 or 27001 for sorry, for information security, and 22301 for business continuity. You can integrate this standard with them, and I'll show you some of that in a bit. So we've spoken about what the bribery from many perspectives. So you can look at bribery. There's a diagram I have up front. I'll show you that diagram in a bit. You can look at bribery from many perspectives. And on this page, everybody, so for those of you that are looking to go back to your organization to activate, to implement, and to adopt this, these are some of the key things you need to do. So this is like your homework, everybody. For your own organization, this is like your homework. This is like some of the things that you need to go back home to do. Okay, you need to have a policy around it. You need to have a management commitment. You need to have documented controls. You need to train a lot of people. Needs to carry out the risks around bribery in what sections of the business, or so to speak, in what departments. You need to look at all sorts of contracts, and that's why things like procurement, contract management must be subject to a lot of these things. You also have to do all sorts of reporting and take all sorts of corrective action. So for you to get this right, you need to, at the very minimum, you need to execute these 8 things. More than this, but at least this is the minimum that any organization in 2024 that is looking to address anti-bribery must put in place. Okay. So how will this standard help or benefit? I mean, the truth is that a lot of these things that are tied to bribery and corruption is usually at the detriment of the organization. Usually, a lot of these things are usually at the detriment of the organization in itself, whether in the short or in the long term. These things are in the detriment of the organization. They might be to the advantage of an individual, of a person, of a group of people, but typically these things are at the detriment of the country. If you look at some countries globally, as I said, not just in Africa, but globally, that have been ridden completely with corruption, those countries are also doing very badly overall. So if you look at organizations that are completely ridden with internal and external bribery and corruption, those organizations are also significantly hampered to be able to do well in the short and in the longer term. I've been involved with an organization where we were not really doing well from our regulatory papers, and at the end of the day, taxes and some of those things, and at the end of the day, it ended up hurting the organization in itself. So the standard provides a structured approach to managing this. And yes, you can get certified to this. So someone like myself, I can certify an organization to this, that how they put in the controls, and are those controls operational, and I can come to review them and I can audit them and get them certified to say, well, they're certified. I enjoin all of you to please look on the PECB website. The PECB website on the training side has got a nice article, and I've taken extracts from that article I've been involved with PECB for about a decade, and a lot of these articles have provided my own thoughts and reviews of some of these papers. So you can look on the PECB website. It's got brilliant free materials, so white paper and things like that. And Muiwa, who is hopefully on this call, and Victoria, we provide and Bright, we provide training, and Margaret, we provide training for this particular course from PECB. Now let's jump into looking at the whole standard in itself. And remember that I told you that this standard, you can integrate it with other other management systems, because management systems, the compulsory portion of a lot of the management systems have what we call clauses 4 to 10. Most of them have what we call clauses 4 to 10. So what integration with other management systems, what it means is that you can you don't have to have understanding of the organization and its context. You don't have to have it twice. So you can integrate 4.1, 4.2 with some areas and other standards that are aligned. But you can see here, this is one of the very few standards that has got something called 4.5 that speaks about bribery risk assessment. 4.5 that has bribery risk assessment. Most of the other management systems do not have this 4.5, but this one does. Most of the things in number 5 are the same, but in this standard, with other standards is what I mean. Well, in this particular standard, under 5.1, they've broken what is expected from the governing body, the board, versus what is expected from top management. That is important here. They've also put something under 5.3 that talks about roles and responsibilities, and they mentioned something around anti-bribery compliance as a function, and that can sit within the existing compliance unit and department. Then they've also talked about the delegation of decision making relative to some of these things, maybe from the board to the excos, depending on how the organization has looked at it. So it goes on like that, but I'd like to really just focus on clause 8. So under clause 8, which is the core of the standard, under clause 8, which is the core of the standard,
okay.
Can you please mute that person, please? Please, all right? Under the standard, in clause 8, which is usually the most, should I say, the most, what's the right word now? Qualitative, the most qualitative, please let me just look for that person. All right. Right? Which is the most qualitative portion of the whole standard is around clause 8. And then of course in clause 8 you see things like very due diligence, financial controls, non-financial controls, and those are key things. Once again, I said it's Christmas time. We have to now start discussing gifts, hospitality, donations, and all sorts of benefits. And the concept of raising concerns. So when I also get to whistleblowing, you'll see the conversation around whistleblowing and things like that. So clause 8 is the core portion of this whole anti-bribery management system. It's very deep. The standard in itself does not give you all you need to know, especially when you're looking at financial transactions, you're looking at supplier contractual transactions and many other things. It doesn't tell you a lot of those things. However, there are additional things that you need to know that will help you if you really do plan to get on top of this as an organization. And of course, you would also see that this particular standard is called 9.4, which is how do you review how does the anti-bribery compliance function that had already been mentioned in 5.3, how does it work? How does it help? How does it aid in addressing what it is that we're looking at? So pretty much, this is it. This is the anti-bribery management system. It's a full management system. It goes beyond just addressing anti-bribery, but looks at it as a complete management system. And management systems are built around that clause 8. So it's almost like clause 8, which is the operation of anti-bribery in the organization, is smack in the middle, while all the other things they surround as it is. So yeah, pretty much. Um, there's also, if you go online and you just type anti-bribery and corruption framework, this document does exist, and it's a huge document, right? So it's a massive document. So if somebody is involved with doing this, and this is their line of work, and this is what it is that they're involved with, it would also be useful for you to look at this and to look at it in in detail as it is. So yeah, so pretty much it can be adopted by any system. It's got a lot of benefits in itself as it is. So you can see the link on my screen that will help you to get to this document. So it's not an ISO standard. It's the IIA, Institute of Internal Auditors of Malaysia, that came up with it, and it's a brilliant document, and it definitely will help you, especially if you're in a legal department, you're in compliance, and this happens to be part of your responsibility as an organization. So yeah, I'll go through this very quickly. I won't spend too much time um, here, because once again, this is something that you and I, we kind of know about, and it's something we've all experienced, whether we're the givers or we're the collectors or we're facilitators or we're in between. So my quick question to everybody is, I mean, please go in the chat room and just share your thoughts with me. What do you think about the concept of anti-bribery in itself? Is bribery part of human life? Is it part of business? What is your personal opinion? Will you say, well, dude, see, this bribery thing, there's nothing we can do about it. It's just, it comes with the terrain, something along those lines. What are your thoughts with regards to this? What would you like to say with regards to anti-bribery? Will you say, well, it's something we need to stamp out? And another thing I want everybody to please share your thoughts with me very quickly in the chat room is, can this world, is it possible to actually exist without some form of bribery, right? Can it be stamped out completely? Can we take it to zero, or can we just reduce it slightly? Is this something that can only be reduced, or it is something that can be stamped out completely? So I'd like to hear the thoughts of everybody in the chat room, to hear what you think about anti-bribery management, anti-bribery as a concept, and then the management system. Do you think is essential? Do you think it is important? And even if an organization gets certified to this, is this a guarantee that they are not involved with bribery, that their officials and their staff and their personnel are not involved with bribery one way or the other? So please, can I get thoughts from everybody in the chat room? I would like to read from everybody once I finish my presentation in another 20 minutes. I'll definitely want to read from everybody. So please, drop your thoughts, drop your opinion, drop whatever it is that you think with regards to this. Can it go away completely? Can it go away just partially? Can it be completely eradicated? Can it be stamped out? What are your thoughts with regards to this? Once again, there are many benefits if a nation, for example, gets this right. All right, and as I've said, for most organizations, these things are the detriment, or are to the detriment of the organization eventually. While of course there's definitely a religious should I say, perspective to this whole thing, but remember that ISO is not a religious company. They don't practice any form of religion. They are talking about corporate governance and the things that will help an organization to thrive, not just on the immediate, but even into the future. So there are many benefits to this whole thing if you get it right and if your organization gets it right. But it's about culture. It's about corporate governance. It's that this is a direct subset of corporate governance in itself. And I like this diagram because it talks about being involved one way or the other, whether you're the giver or you're the person that is collecting or you're the person that is facilitating. There are many transactions in my organizations that I'll say, now we can't do this because this is us. It's almost like some people will want to use your organization to siphon funds to the detriment even of your own business. So even in my own organization, I have to tell them, no, we're sorry, we can't do this because what's the point of some of those things are even to our own overall detriment. We've been involved. I've seen where you do a transaction and you don't understand the tax liabilities, and then at the end of the day, you're paying all sorts of taxes for things that you didn't even realize you're going to be paying taxes for. So there are many ways by which people are involved: friends, associates, at work. It can even be internal. This happens internally as it is. This happens a lot. So yeah, it's a big deal. I'm not going to want to read the slides to you, but just realize that eventually it's usually to the detriment of the entire organization. I've seen this in my life as an auditor. I've seen all sorts of scenarios, all sorts of situations. As also a business owner, I've also seen all sorts of things as it is relative to these things. So it also has an impact on culture. I've seen some organizations that this is the order of the day. I remember one time we were doing some training and we were okay. No, we're not doing training. We're trying to hire a trainer, and then he showed us his CV, and we asked him that how come you've trained all these organizations? You've even done more training than we have as a person. And he said, oh, in this particular telco, everybody in HR has their own company. So HR shares all the training courses. That's what he said, amongst themselves. And each person has their own personal company, and they will then take those training courses, hire him as an individual trainer, get hotel. I remember when that same telco, I remember one time they sent us something to quote for training. And part of it, they said we must submit the soft copy of our training material upfront as part of our quote. They wrote it in there formally. They said we must submit the soft copy of our training material as part of our proposal. So that's what they will do. They will then take the training, the materials, they will adjust it and then print it out. And they did it for years. So literally, it was something that was being practiced from bottom to the top or top down in that particular organization. And at the end of the day, those things were detrimental to the organization, detrimental to the objective, detrimental to the staff of the organization in itself. So this is not we're not saying this from some kind of righteous perspective. It is actually to the detriment of the organizations eventually. And as I did say, this is about corporate governance. This is about risk management as it is. The UN has a guide for anti-corruption policy. So you can open the browser and you will see the UN has a document for that also in there. So yeah, as I said, I don't want to take too much of your time this afternoon, but these are all things that you and we need to be aware of. Bribery by the organization, within the organization, by the staff of the organization, collecting and taking and things like that. And this applies everywhere, so to speak. So if we say we're practicing corporate governance, then we should practice corporate governance adequately. So once again, everybody, let's share your thoughts with me in the chat room about and it could be your philosophical thoughts around bribery and corruption. It could be philosophical. It could be whatever, right? It could be philosophical. It could be intellectual. It could whatever perspective. Share your thoughts with me about anti-bribery. Good. I'll move on very quickly to the second standard, and I won't stay long here. That is a whistleblowing system. So, in fact, ISO 37000 is corporate governance. 37001 is anti-bribery. 37002 is whistleblowing. So you can see that the three of them, they're pretty much back to back. The three standards: corporate governance, anti-bribery, and whistleblowing. So they're back to back: 37000, 37001, 37002. They're just back to back as it is, and all of them are under that corporate governance series. In fact, 37003 is about fraud controls. It's actually about fraud control management system. There's something specifically for fraud. Of course, it's not extensive. You need to support it with something else, but there is actually something for fraud control management system as it is. And these are all things that organizations, once again, they need to take into keen consideration as it is. Let me move on. So once again, everybody, if you go to this website, you will see 37002 as a standard, and it's whistleblowing management system. So one of the things, I never liked this concept of whistleblowing because it sounds like snitching, and I don't want to be a snitch, or I never want to be referred to as a snitch. Okay, so I don't want to be looked at as a snitch. I don't want to be a snitch. I don't want to be referred to as a snitch. So I had to check it out and say, you know what? A snitch does this simply because they're only thinking about a benefit for themselves. But a whistleblower looks at the violation of policy because it's the right thing to do without any real expectation of a reward. But in most places, when especially even in government, the police, when they're looking for somebody or looking for something, we see it on the news all the time, they start to offer a reward. So next time, people are doing those things simply because of the reward system. You know, it's almost like when you go broke, you just think about it and say to yourself, you know what? Who can I, who can I, who can I blow the whistle on? And you see instances when people have been doing whistleblowing even against the organization that they work for. So you see there are many instances where people have done whistleblowing against their own organization and they've been rewarded. So that reward portion of this whole whistleblowing thing is a two-edged sword, so to speak. It's a two-edged sword. To think about reward, you will say, oh, a snitch is somebody who is doing it for personal gain, but the whistleblower is not expecting that. But when people whistleblow, they might also get a reward. Some organization, as part of their whistleblowing policy, they've even put a reward in there. So you have to go back and really think about this within the context of your own organization, your own industry, what it is that you're trying to do as an organization and as a business in itself. So once again, it's pretty much like any typical management system, but in this instance, very much tilted towards whistleblowing. But what again, you will see operations, which is the most important portion of this whole thing. You will see operations, which is 8, right? You will see 8, which is the most critical part of the whole standard in itself, and key things that you must think about if you're thinking about whistleblowing as an organization. And I've seen these things in different places, worked in different locations, worked with different entities. I've seen these things in different locations. So if your organization is going to do it, if your organization is going to get this right, you really have to think about whistleblowing properly. in your own organization. So once again, everybody in the chat room, is a whistleblower a snitch? All right, please let me know. Is it different whistleblowing from your perspective? I know what I have said, but from your perspective, do you think whistleblowing is snitching? Is it the same? Is it the same, just called different name? Is snitching in itself, is it bad? All right. So I mean, I want to hear all sorts of thoughts from everybody, because different people will have different thoughts and opinion around whistleblowing. As I said, I'm one of those people that used to think about it. I'm like, why do you want to tell on your friends and tell on your colleagues? What about if you don't tell, and that particular thing is detrimental even to your own existence and to the existence of the organization that you work for? Because people have all sorts of behaviors. People steal from the organization, they steal all sorts of things from the company, steal clients, steal intellectual material. People do all sorts of things. What about if those things will end up being detrimental to the organization? What about if what your colleague is doing, what is happening, ends up almost ruining the organization in itself? And I can tell you, I've seen organizations that they might have even struggled to stay in business if not for a whistleblower. I've seen this in many places whereby the organization in itself would have struggled if not that the whistleblower, somebody stealing consistently, appropriating things to themselves to the point whereby the company is making losses. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to the concept of whistleblowing. So imagine somebody is leading the organization to almost get out of business. It's that bad. That if the volume of what it is that they're doing, that if that thing continues, that company will fold up. So if there's no whistleblower, all the other people will also look at it and they will keep quiet, they will turn their noses up and say, well, it's not really my father's company, so it doesn't really matter. And then the whole organization, the same company that pays them salaries and things like that, end up folding up. So what will be the good that will come out of that? So once again, there are philosophical thoughts and opinions, differing opinions with regards to these things, especially its implementation. So once again, I want to hear from you. Is whistleblowing? Is it snitching? Please, I'm going to go to the chat room in a couple of minutes. Is it the same? Should we encourage whistleblowing? I mean, I've seen all sorts of these things in my own organization, as I said, and in others, whereby one staff is doing something that is detrimental to the organization. And if their colleagues don't speak out, the entire organization would have been in trouble, would have struggled to pay the salaries of the remaining colleagues because of what one of their colleagues is doing. So while you might look at it and say, oh, people should not be snitching on their colleagues because those people are also their friends and things like that. But a lot of times when these things are happening, they are detrimental to the organization. And if your colleague, so for your colleague is doing some wrongdoing, and you can see 8.4 that talks about addressing reports of wrongdoing and the investigation around these kinds of things. Your colleague is doing something that is detrimental to the organization, then your colleague makes a lot of money from it and then leaves the organization, and you're left in the organization. Now the company is struggling to stay in business, now to your own detriment, because you don't have another job and you have not made money from doing all sorts of nefarious and dubious things. So I like to hear the thoughts of everybody. I want more people to come into the chat room and say that, I've had people who have honorably resigned from our organization, but I've also had people who, where in modern day, you have people who are even working for two organizations at the detriment of one. So there are many things that you need to consider under this relative to your own organization. And I'd like to hear the thoughts and the opinion of everybody. Should whistleblowing, should it be compulsory? Should we do it? Please, everybody that is on the call, I want you to please come to the chat room and just quickly give me your thoughts. That would allow me know whether I've been able to communicate adequately on the score as it is. Okay, so I won't spend a lot of time. Once again, there are many things. I put a link somewhere. Yeah, there's a link here. This here. So good cooperation, everybody. If you see my screen, you see they have some whistleblowing. It's called a good cooperation whistleblowing framework, and it's great. It's in line with some directive from EU, and it's almost like some kind of it takes some into consideration some of the things in the ISO standard, but it also brings a couple of other things, especially when it comes to investigations and avoidance of detriment. The big thing when it comes to this whole whistleblowing thing is always one of the big things everywhere right now is the protection of the whistleblower, the protection of the whistleblower. Because in a lot of places, there has been a huge backlash against the whistleblower. So the whistleblower internally, you will find out that it was meant to be a secret, but somebody in compliance or in HR ended up telling others about who the whistleblower was with regards to something. So there's a lot of backlash when it comes to this. So people, and a lot of people will rather, because of fear of some of these things, retaliation, social status, and all sorts of things, will rather not even whistleblow. Once again, these things are usually to the detriment of the organization. And this concept is a corporate governance concept. It is a corporate governance concept in itself, right? Well, I mean, once again, this is global. There is no bank. In fact, if you're in Europe, in Europe, you're judged, audited in line with this whole whistleblowing thing. You're judged, you're audited, you're reviewed, tied to whistleblowing. Blowing. You're going to get you're going to get an auditor from the regulator, from the government that comes to look at your organization. They're going to check on your website and all that. You can't get certified to the standard, but it doesn't mean you cannot adopt the standard as an organization. So you might not be able to get certified to it, but you can definitely adopt it. And I like this. I like this because it talks about the 3 principles of whistleblowing. The staff of the organization must trust the executives and the management. That that there must also be complete impartiality and even confidentiality with regards to this. Sometimes I've had people escalate things to me in my own organization privately, and I've been grateful to them. And sometimes I don't even tell the number 2 person in the organization because I don't want them to speak flippantly about it in other locations or in other meetings. So confidentiality, trust, and the concept of impartiality, like you will not be, that the executives and the board, the management will be impartial relative to the decisions they're going to make, tied to that particular case. And further to that, it's about protection. You have to protect the identity, the safety, the interest of the whistleblower in itself, right? Him or herself. You've got to protect the entities, and that's where it comes from. So there's top management is definitely involved. They have to think about how they want to do this, how they show their own commitment, and trust. Trust is a huge conversation when it comes to this whole whistleblowing thing. That the people must trust the organization. But you also have to do your own investigation, because some people can also carry out some whistleblowing activities against their colleagues, against other entities. Should I say from a vindictive perspective? Maybe they have some wrong against that person, and they go to say things that are not correct or true as it is. So you have to think about this as it is, and that's why it talks about impartiality, that you're not biased. You go to report, and then the person is looking at ethnicity, and then the MD or the leaders are now saying, oh, well, it's because you don't like the person from another tribe or something along those lines, or the executives start to say it's because the person is from a different political party or different religion or whatever that thing is, and the fear of retaliation that I've seen, people have also seen where management has now looked at that person that has carried out the whistleblowing and now taking measures even against the whistleblower. So people, it's not a small conversation. It's not about just having the policies as it is. It is really about drilling down and ensuring that you understand the culture of the organization. A whistleblowing approach for company A might not be the same approach for company B. The culture of company A is usually different from the culture of company B. And so whistleblowing approach has got to be it's got to take the culture into consideration. And once again, you've got to ensure that you don't take the benefits away from the people, that the people don't have a backlash. What about people who have been killed because they carried out some kind of whistleblowing? Like they've actually lost their lives. So because they were not protected, and the organization is meant to protect them. Well, I've spoken extensively about the reward system, and now each organization really has to think about its own reward system. Okay, you've got to think about it. Well, this reward, is this going to enable whistleblowing? Is the reward going to be detrimental to whistleblowing? Is the reward going to how is this reward going to work out? What are the threats and the opportunities around the reward system? So you have to think about that. You have to take that into keen consideration as it is. It's pretty much, I've spent about an hour speaking, and I'm grateful to everybody. These are some of the things we've done this year. So I started out in April because I was extremely busy in the first quarter of the year. And we started in April, and we've been able to do all sorts of things around corporate social responsibility, around asset management, around compliance, corporate governance, risk, innovation, facility, climate. And this is the last one for the year where we've spoken about anti-bribery and whistleblowing system. We changed the dates, and so that date needs to be reflected. But let me quickly, and I'm grateful to everyone. I am grateful to everyone that has been a part of this all these webinars. Some people on this call are the people that we'll call regulars, and I'm grateful to you all for being a part of this. Let me just quickly look at some of the comments that have been made here relative to whistleblowing, as we will start to round up this segment, so to speak. So let me go from the very beginning. How do you manage the situation where your organization is certified, but your clients constantly ask for bribery before they award contract, then you're caught with you rejecting and meeting your target? Big issue. Big issue. And I mean, once again, there are no straight answers to this. I was sharing with some of my colleagues. I said, well, at this stage in my life, people usually don't bring these things to me. People don't come to meet me and tell me that that I need to give them money before they give me work. I don't experience a lot of that any longer. I used to. Well, now people just don't bring such conversations to me. So it's either they don't give me the work at all, or they give me the work without telling me that, oh, you need to give me this or that. So while that is easy for me to say, there are loads of people who work for me who need to, who face these kinds of things on a daily basis. So the organization has to make its own decisions at some point in time to say, well, do we want to continue doing this? Are we going to turn turn our eyes away from this? Or some organizations will just look at it and say, we're not going to do it. I do know a few organizations will say, well, sorry, you can take the work. That's because they know that they're doing all the other things that they know they're meant to be doing. They're doing their proper business development, they're doing whatever it is, and they just believe that they will stick to their guns. Because you say you would do anti-bribery does not mean there are no threats to it. There might even be some disbenefits to it. As you said, you might not be able to meet your target. But I think each organization just needs to take an overall view as it sees. So, but realize that these two conversations of anti-bribery and whistleblowing, they are corporate governance conversations. Just realize that. And sometimes at the end of the day, some of these things, think about it, that some of these things end up being detrimental to both your own organization and others, right? So, I mean, so for example, I've done a lot of business development, so I'm never worried if I lose a job or somebody says that they're not going to give me something. I know that I'm going to get something from somebody else, and that's critical. So thank you very much, Lola, for some of those your comments, and Remy also. Elijah says bribery cannot be eradicated as it is. However, it can be controlled to some kind of minimal level. I kind of agree. Prince says it's not snitching. It's part of the social collective responsibility. I do agree. Damilare says snitch usually expects a drop or something in return, while a whistleblower is reporting the violation of procedure standards, laws, without expecting anything. Omotala says the difference between snitching and whistleblowing is the intention of the reporter. And that's why I talked about that reward system. Otherwise, the reward becomes the incentive for people to do it, right? It's almost like you're broke and you start to look for who you can, what you can whistleblow or who you can whistleblow against to be able to make some money. So I do agree with you, Omotala. Ioma also says whistleblowing is not snitching. It helps to mitigate unethical behavior or corruption. Gatti says first there should be structures put in place to protect whistleblowers. Completely, it's a requirement. It's a requirement of the standard, because if the people don't feel safe and they don't trust the executive, they won't even do it. So Richard just said yes. Ugochukwu Chris says whistleblowing is not snitching. Whistleblowing only identifies and addresses the wrong, so to speak. And we simply try not to be thieves. Precious says, can we simply try not to be thieves? At the end of the day, nobody wants to report a colleague, but everything that puts the organization should be treated seriously. I agree with you. Shala says is another form of security for an organization that employees are encouraged to do without fear of retaliation. I completely agree with you, Lushala. Uchenna says rewards for whistleblowing should be a valuable tool, but it's not a complex issue with both potential benefits and drawbacks. You have to really think about your reward system. It's not something you can just pick the reward system from somewhere else. You really have to think about yours. And so Uchenna, thank you for this extensive explanation. Drawbacks in terms of over-reliance on rewards. So Uchenna, thank you for that. Onome says it's not, and it helps to control misconduct. Yes. Can you share the session for those who joined a bit late? Yes, we will. We have a YouTube link, so we'll share that with you. Updated with this particular webinar, and if you register, you must have registered to come onto this. You will also get the presentation. And Miriam says whistleblowing is a way of monitoring some kind of progress as it sees. So yes, I've taken the thoughts of everybody that is on the call into keen consideration. I mean, you can't trust me. I mean, I've been around these things for a long time. Eventually, it will hurt the organization. Eventually, it will hurt your organization as it is. It's just that, you have to also be prepared for the backlash. Some people say, oh, you can't be a doer of good or somebody who wants to do good or stick to something without thinking that there might be some backlash. There definitely might be some backlash, and you should be prepared for the backlash of doing the right thing. You might lose money, just like Lola was saying. You might lose opportunities as it is. There's individual conscience. There's also organizational conscience. There's individual conscience. There's also organizational conscience, so to speak. So each organization needs to think about its own organization and how they want to approach some of these things as it is. So Once again, to all our regulars, thank you very much for being here. We're grateful to you. If you don't attend these webinars, then I'll be speaking to myself and speaking only to maybe Oyi and Maureen and Abigail. So thank you very much for taking the time out to be here. We're going to do some of these things next year, but we've taken a different direction. We're going to do something on outsourcing records and things like this next year, but I doubt if we're going to do that. We've taken a different direction as an organization. The SDG goals are critical to us, and we're launching some new courses in January around SDG professional courses for champions and professionals. We have a couple of initiatives we're doing with some of the development partners. So we're going to be running webinars throughout the whole of next year around SDG. So we're going to do a limited audience for our SDG Champions program and certification, which we're going to be launching in January. And every month throughout the whole of next year, we're going to do in-depth discussion around SDGs, poverty, hunger, good health, and all the other ones. So there's 17 of them, but we'll probably only be able to do 11 next year. And then we'll probably, God willing, we'll complete the remaining 6 in the first 6 months of the year 2025. This is a huge focus for us next year, having conversations around how state governments, companies, individuals, organizations can all contribute towards ensuring that these sustainable development goals that they end up being useful and valuable to all of us, and that we all will get the benefits out of this whole thing. So once again, I'm grateful to everybody that has taken the time to be here, all the great people that are all here. All of you have left your work today to be a part of this, and we don't take these things for granted. We're truly grateful to you once again. If you don't show up for these webinars, I'll be speaking to myself and maybe to only some of my colleagues who work within the organization. So thank you very much for being a part of this. I wish you all well. I wish you an excellent holiday period. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all of you. I wish you all a wonderful 2024, and thank you very much for supporting our organizations, both on the training side and even on the audit side, and RCT. So thank you very much. We appreciate your time. God bless you, and I will see you all in the new year. I'll see you all in the new year. So thank you very much once again, and God bless. Thank you, everyone. So once again, we will share this in the chat room. You can just give me your final thoughts. I hope this has been useful. We'll share this. We'll share this with you as it is. So Grace, thank you very much for your comment. Different from whistleblowing. Thank you very much, Grace, for your comment. Thank you, Prince. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Shala. Bilusi, thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Hilma. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate being able to work with you throughout this whole year. I know most people that are on the call, colleagues, former colleagues, friends, and clients that are all on the call. So Gati, thank you. Thank you very much, Gati. Ugochukwu Chris, thank you. Thank you, Onome, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. It's been great having you all here, and I look forward to a beautiful 2024. Thank you. And of course, to the whole team.
Thanks, Venerable.
Thank you very much, Billy. Thank you very much. And to the whole team, everybody that has worked very hard in putting these things together, Maureen, Uyin, well done, everyone, and Muiwa and Victoria and everybody that has been involved, and Bright and Hafiz, everybody that has been involved in ensuring that these webinars have worked and have been successful. We're grateful to also, I am grateful actually to all of you. I'm grateful to everybody that has been instrumental in ensuring that this whole thing works. I'm grateful to you all, and we look forward to a much more successful 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, boss.